Welcome back to part 2 of my 5-part series where I'll be breaking down exactly how much money you'll be taking home on your W-2 paychecks in the state of California. In this series, you are going to get a full understanding of all the taxes that are being removed from your W-2, and you'll even be able to calculate exactly what your bi-weekly take-home pay ultimately should be from your W-2. Better yet, I do all these calculations live on my iPad. My name is Karrington. I'm a 23-year-old certified enrolled agent. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, let's get into these calculations. $100,000 via W-2 in the state of California. What is the tax breakdown going to be? Let's dive in. So, starting with a fresh $100,000, we are in this 6-figure range. The first thing that we need to go ahead and calculate is exactly what our federal income tax is ultimately going to be. Typically, how we're figuring that out is we're looking at the federal income tax bracket, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my $100,000. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and remove my standard deduction. A standard deduction is something that all taxpayers ultimately receive. I am going to be doing this calculation as if I was a single filer. So I will remove $16,100 and I will be left with exactly $83,900. $83,900 is going to be my federal taxable income after the standard deduction. From there, I apply these different tax rates to figure out exactly how much tax I'm going to be owing. Now, the United States has a progressive tax rate, meaning the more and more income that you make, the more and more your tax rate is ultimately going to increase or progress. Starting with our $83,900, I figure out what tax bracket that's going to put us in. It's going to be the 22% tax bracket. So the income coming before that is going to be taxed at these lower rates. I've already done these quick calculations here to figure out what the tax is going to be at the 12% and the 10%. So that's going to be, again, $1,240 plus my $4,560, and I need to figure out my third number, which is how much of this tax am I going to be paying in the 22% tax bracket. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this number, $83,900, and we're going to subtract out what we've already calculated on the tax, which is $50,400. So when I subtract out $50,400, I am left with $33,500. From there, I apply the 22% rate to this number, so times 22%, and I am left with $7,370. So this is a breakdown of the income that's being taxed at 10%, the income that's being taxed at 12%, and the income that's being taxed at 22%. My overall federal tax that I'm going to be having to pay is going to be the total of all these numbers, which is $13,170. So I will go back up to the top and I will add $13,170 is what we're expecting to come out of pocket federal income tax wise. Next, we apply our $100,000 salary times the flat tax rates. So that's going to be Social Security, Medicare, and also the California State Disability Insurance. Now, what exactly is Social Security and Medicare? Social Security allows you to pool Social Security benefits once you ultimately retire. Same thing with Medicare, right? I'm working this W-2. I reach my retirement age of 65 or above. And now I need to start actually pulling Social Security income because I'm no longer working my W-2 job anymore. I need some government subsidies, if you will, some government help. That is exactly what Social Security is. That's exactly what Medicare is, except Medicare obviously is going to be on the medical side. Pretty self-explanatory there. So now I'm going to take my $100,000 and I'm going to multiply it times. That's 6.2%. So that calculation is fairly simple. It's going to be 6,200, right? So we're looking at 6,200 is going to be for Social Security, and I also got to multiply it times 1.45% for my Medicare. and that's going to be 1,450. So we'll do that there, 1,450. And last but not least, now this is kind of venturing over into the California side of things, right? So California state disability insurance here at 1.1%. So I will multiply this again times my 1.1%, and that is going to be 1,100. 1,100. Now, I have all these calculated. The only thing I am missing is the California income tax. So let's scroll down and look at our California tax brackets, because California is actually a state that has a progressive tax bracket as well. It's not necessarily flat. So here are the California tax brackets. Now, like I said, we start with our $100,000, right? And we will apply California's standard deduction. For a single filer, it is going to be $5,536. So minus 5,536, we are going to be left with 5,536. We're going to be left with $94,464. That is going to be putting us in, it looks like, the 13.3% tax bracket, looking right here. So using this graph here, all I need to do is actually take 94,464, so 94,464, and I need to subtract out the amount that was already taxed in this tax bracket. So starting at the lowest, which is going to be 72,724, I'm going to be left with 72,724. I'm going to be left with 21,740. Now what I need to do is multiply that 21,740 times this tax rate, which is 7.3%. So times, 9.3%. Times 9.3%. So times 9.3%. And that gives me a total of, and I'll drop down to this line here, that gives me a total of $2,021.82. But I have to add the tax from these tax rates above. The beautiful thing about this graph is they actually already calculated it, so I know it's this number here. So it's $3,201.97. So let me go ahead and add that. $3,201.97. So let me add that over here. And let's go $3,201.97 for our overall California tax on $100,000 to be $5,223.79. So let me go all the way back up here at the top and add that to our overall summary. So the overall tax that we are paying is, let me go ahead and add up these numbers now. The overall tax that we are going to be paying is $27,143.79. So almost essentially 27% of our overall income is going to taxes. Now, how much is going to be your take home? Our take home is going to be $72,856.21. And last but not least, the biggest calculation, probably the more important one in my eyes, I typically like to understand exactly what I'm getting back bi-weekly, right? That's typically when we're receiving our paychecks. What is going to be our bi-weekly paycheck amount? We're going to take this take-home number and we're going to divide it by 26. Why 26? There's 26 pay periods in a year. Always going to be 26 pay periods in a year. So if I divide that number by 26, our actual take-home pay on a bi-weekly check is ultimately going to be $2,802.16. That is what we were looking at on a bi-weekly paycheck that we will have the ability to take home. Now, in this video, you just saw how I calculated exactly what your bi-weekly paycheck is ultimately going to be based on a $100,000 W-2 in the state of California. If you got any value from this video, you started to understand a little bit of how the taxes ultimately work, please feel free to go ahead and drop a like and subscribe to my channel. I do breakdowns like this every single week, understanding the tax game, understanding how it ultimately applies to you. I would really appreciate a like and a follow. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Karrington. I'm an enrolled agent. Welcome to my channel.